It's that time of the year where you're going to want to start getting your garden ready. And one thing that is a staple in every garden is tomatoes. So how do you grow them? Where do you get started? How do you get the most out of your tomato plant? Lots of questions. And the guy with all the answers, Don Kinsler with the NDSU Extension Service. Don, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
I feel like you don't even have to have a full garden. Some people just grow tomatoes. So if you want to do that, whether it's a whole garden full or just outside of your, maybe on your patio, what do you need to know about just getting started?
Well, I like to call it the Great Tomato Race because a couple of things that we're after with growing tomatoes. One, of course, is early, getting them to grow early. And I'm going to take off my headset because I'm hearing an echo.
Okay. Yeah, we're all getting used to this Skype thing, but I think you sound good to us. So, you go ahead without them on.
Okay, if that sounds great, thank you. Well, of course, the Great Tomato Race, it's fun because a couple of things. It's fun to get them to ripen earlier, and we're going to talk about that, but also to get the best yield as possible out of our tomatoes. So, fun, the Great Tomato Race. And it's also fun to have a little competition with your neighbors. And so first of all, it's important to remember that tomatoes are a warm season crop. They won't start growing well in our gardens until the air temperature gets warm and also the soil temperature. So generally, we're looking at planting tomatoes from about May 20th to 21st and not much earlier. Now, it's important when you're shopping for tomatoes to look at the tag. Now, the tag's got some very important information on, and we should check the tag for the days to maturity. If you look at the tag, either the front or the back, it will have the number of days. And that's the number of days from transplanting into the garden until the harvesting of ripe tomatoes. And that gives a kind of a relative guide to the earliness of the tomato. And if we take a look at the next slide, we've got them kind of categorized. For example, when you look at those days listed on the tag, early tomatoes, those that will ripen earliest in the garden, are listed at about 55 to 65 days, such as Early Girl is kind of a staple one, 55 to 65 days. Now, mid-season tomatoes, now these are the ones that generally we want for our main crop of tomatoes. If you do canning or processing, those will be listed at 68 to 78 days. Celebrity, Big Beef, Cheyenne, those are all. So check the tags, especially for that, 68 to 78 days. Now, late ripening tomatoes will be about 80 to 110 days. On those, it's fine to have those, but if those were the only tomatoes you plant, they're going to be kind of late. Now, many of us like to plant early, mid-season, and late so that you kind of have a broad season of ripening. But anyway, if you want kind of that earliest first tomato, look for 55 to 65 days. Now, maybe let's take a look at the next slide if we could. Yeah, the other thing that will be on the tag is two words, indeterminate and determinate. Now, indeterminate, as we look on the left-hand side, the indeterminate tomato varieties keep growing. They're the ones that we need to put a stake or a cage. They keep growing, and they bear kind of throughout the season, starting and then into late. On the right-hand side of the screen, we see determinate tomatoes. And determinate tomatoes are more of a bush habit. You can stake them, but they don't need a cage. They tend to ripen their tomatoes in a more consolidated time frame. So if you're going to do canning and you want a lot of tomatoes ripe at the same time, maybe the determinate types are the way to go.
Okay, I love that you're talking to me about salsa. I guess canning and salsa, I think about that when you're out canning. Do you have a preference on taste? I know everybody is different, but when we're talking about all the different varieties, how about your favorite?
My favorite, couple of our favorites are Celebrity and Big Beef because they're good main season, middle of the summer. They have good disease resistance, and we can talk about disease resistance too in a minute. But they've got good blight resistance. They're good meaty tomatoes. So Big Beef and Celebrity were both All-America winners and good all-around tomatoes. And of course, lots of people have their own kind of private preferences for types.
I know. I need to know for my salsa and for my BLT. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some of the diseases and some of the care, maybe some tricks as well to grow some great tomatoes. Stay with us.